What's up guys? For today's video, I'm going to show you how to properly wire a trolling motor from the front of your boat to the battery in the back of your boat. Overall, the process is pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of specific things you need to account for and do correctly to make sure you're wiring it up safe and effective. Now, the main thing that you're going to need to take a look at with your trolling motor is what is your distance from the end of your cables from the trolling motor running to your battery. Not from the actual trolling motor to your battery, but from the end of the cables. Most trolling motor manufacturers will have some type of chart to tell you what size cable you need to use based on the size of your motor and the distance to the battery. Now, the mistake I made was I only used about 10 gauge wire, but the recommended size was actually 6 gauge, which is considerably thicker cable. Now, the other thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is you're wiring up a breaker in between your positive cable and the trolling motor. If your trolling motor for some reason starts taking too much power, you can burn your cable up and cause a fire in your boat. That's the last thing you want to do. So for today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to connect 6 gauge wire to your trolling motor, as well as install a 60 amp breaker in line to your trolling motor. So for tools, it's not too complicated. For one, you want to get yourself a wire stripper that has a crimping section on here. We're going to be using Anderson plugs. So this comes with 2 plugs and a set of lugs for each plug. You're going to want some heat shrink just to make sure all your connections stay nice and protected and solid. And then you're going to want some type of hot air to do your heat shrink. I'm using this hot air station. You can use a regular heat gun. First thing I'm going to do is strip back the wires a little bit further so we have a good connection in the lugs on both sides. So when these wire ends get pushed into the housing, the general idea is that they're going to clip into each other like that inside the housing. So you want to make sure that when you're doing your connectors, you have them both facing the same side when they go into the housing. If you have smaller than 6 gauge wire and your connection is loose when you push the cap on, you can actually fold the wire down and then press it in to make sure you have a solid connection. So I'm just going to go ahead and twist the end here. Make sure we get something nice to crimp onto. Okay, that's good. For these type of connectors, we're going to be using the crimp part that has the spike on it here. 1, oh, a little too hard. 2, all right. So now we got 2 good crimps on it there. That wire is not going anywhere. I'm going to make sure that both of the connections are facing in the same direction just to make it easier when we put it in the housing. There's 1, and there's 2. So I'm going to slide the heat shrink over the connector and use our hot air station here and shrink it up. All right, with all of our connectors heat shrunk onto the cables, we are good to insert these into the housing and get this end connected up. So for your housing, you're going to have a flat side and a rounded side. The rounding side is what we're going to consider the top. If you look at your cable end, there's a bump. The bump is going to go towards the top. So it's noted positive and negative. We want to make sure we do the same on each side. So we're going to go ahead and insert our cable ends. And then once you see the tab come through on the other side, you know it's good. And now we have both of them in there. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other side. Listen for the click. Now they're in. So now you got positive to positive, and then I'm going to connect in. Your wire connection is complete. I'm going to go ahead and leave this unconnected. We'll rejoin these connections once we get our battery cable ends done and the 60 amp fuse set up. So now we need to hook up our fuse in line with the positive of the battery. We have a battery line that's going to run from the fuse to the battery, and then we're going to be having our load line, which is then going to connect up to the cable that's routed from the trolling motor. We're going to be doing 4 of these connections. So basically we're going to have one end on either side here, and then the 2 going to the positive and negative on the battery itself. The one thing I did make a mistake with my ordering is I got my ring size a little too big. You can see here, so I may put a washer, make sure we have a really solid connection here. So now I've cut my positive where I want to do the first connection. Make sure that's nice and solid, which it is. Good seal on this. I really enjoy this hot air station over a big bulky heat gun like I was using before. Super cheap too. This thing was like 15 bucks or something like that. All right, let's go ahead and hook these up to the breaker and see how that works. All right, I'm just gonna use a flat washer. That way we know our connection's good. These are stainless steel washers, so we shouldn't have any issues with that. Now that side of the fuse is connected. That looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and connect up the other side doing the same way. All right, so I just have the zip tied in place here just to give myself a rough position before I mount this. I think this is actually where I'm gonna go. That way, when I lift up the lid, I'll have easy access to reset the breaker if I need to. And it gives me plenty of clearance to do everything else I need. So this is going to be my cable that is going to go to the positive terminal on the battery now. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this side cut and put a ring connector on it. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the negative terminal. Okay, now let's go ahead and get everything hooked up and try this out. Gonna add this to the negative kill switch terminal. Now the positive is gonna connect right to the battery. Now I will probably switch over to a positive and negative bus bar at some point. I just haven't finished my wiring to know how I want to directly route every single wire. So for now, this is what we're gonna get. Now to some, this might look like a rat's nest of wires, but to me, it is a beautiful connection, all set up exactly the way it should. So at this point, all of our wires are set up. The last connection we need to make is up by the trolling motor. First thing I want to do is turn my kill switch on to make sure that the breaker doesn't immediately pop and make sure we have our connections good. So far so good. Okay, so go ahead and turn that off. Now follow our line. So we got positive to the battery coming up to the breaker. The breaker is following down here, down the side of the boat. Negative is directly connected to the battery. Following the line down, we have our Anderson connectors up front. And if you remember the chart that I referenced in the beginning of the video, this was a 20-foot cable that I probably cut off about 3 to 4 foot. So I would say we're closer to the 15-foot mark, which is about 4 to 6 gauge wire. So we're using 6, I think we should be good. I'm gonna go ahead and connect up the 2 cables. Nice solid connection there. Now, let's go ahead and turn our kill switch on. We got power, see the switch panel? Okay, let's see if the trolling motor turns on. There it is. Awesome. All right, guys, well, I hope you found this helpful. After seeing it all demonstrated, as you can see, it's not really that difficult, but there are a number of specific things you wanna make sure you do right so this is safe and works as best as it can. If you use wire that is undersized, you can actually lose power to your trolling motor because when heat generates, that's power loss that could have been in your trolling motor. Now, obviously the bigger concern is that using 2 small wires, the heat generation from the resistance can actually burn the wires and start a fire. So that's the main reason for using the right cable. But if for some reason you're not safety conscious, you want the most power to your trolling motor, use the right size cable. If you guys found this video helpful, let me know by hitting that like button. If you want to see more videos like this and all the other fun stuff I got coming up for the John boat, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.